When the $240 million Rafale burned in the Kashmir Valley, did the myth of invincibility that France's Dassault Aviation had crafted over 2 decades turn to smoke? In the early morning hours of May 7, 2025, a large-scale airstrike by the Indian Air Force, IAF, codenamed Operation Sindoor, began. In the early hours of May 7, 2025, the Indian Air Force, IAF, kicked off a large-scale airstrike called Operation Sindoor, in which 72 Indian warplanes, including 14 French Rafale fighters, which the media described as the best in the world, swooped down on the Pakistani line of control, LOC. They swooped down on the Pakistani line of control, LOC. However, they were greeted by 42 fighters from the Pakistan Air Force, and one of the largest air showdowns of the century erupted in the skies over Kashmir. Within an hour, Ahmad Sharif Chowdhury, director of Pakistan's Inter-Services Public Relations Bureau, shocked the world by announcing the results of the battle. 3 Rafale, 1 Su-30 MKI, and 1 MiG-29 were shot down with 0 losses, and, most notably, one of the Rafale was destroyed by PL-15E missiles 93 kilometers from the LOC, a classic example of a kill from beyond visual range. In the face of 3 weeks of questioning by military observers around the globe, the French Ministry of Defense finally issued an official response. On May 27 by Armed Forces Staff spokesman Colonel Verne. At a regular press conference in Paris, the officer, facing the Phoenix TV cameras, was cautious but intriguing. The details of the current incident are still shrouded in the fog of war, and much of the information has yet to be confirmed. But we are in close communication with India to get first-hand information. In a twist, he said, if the Rafale was indeed shot down, it would be its first combat loss in 20 years of service. Behind this seemingly glib statement is the French military giant Dassault Aviation is facing shock waves. On the day of Verne's statement, the company's shares have plummeted a cumulative total of 18%. Potential buyers Egypt, Qatar have postponed order negotiations. Although the Indian military has always been secretive, but hard evidence has long been spread around the global network, the LM-3266 missile hangars scattered in the farmland of Bathinda, Punjab belong to the Rafale. Unique, with French markings of the wing wreckage was photographed by the villagers uploaded, and even the Indian soldiers blocked the scene of the crash were exposed by the media. Rafale's fall is no accident. Its so-called all-powerful performance in front of the systematic combat exposed fatal shortcomings. When the Indian pilots driving a single price of $292 million of the Navy version of the Rafale rise to the sky, they do not know that the Pakistani Army's J-10CE has long been through the KLJ-7A active phased array radar to complete the LOC 170 kilometers away. This detection distance than the Rafale's RBE-2AA radar is more than the whole 70 kilometers. More deadly, the Pakistani Army J-10CE equipped with PL-15E missiles with a range of 145 kilometers to crush the Rafale-mounted Meteor missiles. The formation of see farther, hit first, overwhelming advantage. The Indian Army is proud of the universal brand equipment at the critical moment and turn into a shackle. A Rafale crashed before the electronic warfare system in the face of China's KL-700 electronic warfare pod interference completely failed. India's self-developed Astra missiles and the French fire control system data chain breaks, resulting in pilots and the enemy instantly fell into the weapons cannot fire. The Indian self-developed Astra missile and the French fire control system data link broken, resulting in the pilot in the moment of receiving the enemy into weapons cannot be launched. Desperate situation. In sharp contrast, the PAF relies on the ZDK-03 AWACS plus J-10CE plus Red Flag 9B to build the combat system, to realize the radar detection, target allocation to the seamlessness of missile interception. India has cumulatively splashed out $320 billion for 62 Rafale, equivalent to $500 per Indian taxpayer. But the sky-high price of the contract in exchange for the French side of the harsh fall a compensation triple clause. The 3 Rafale crash may allow India to pay an additional $2.5 billion. More ironic is that these delicate young master in only 26 can be ready to fly combat. The remaining 36 due to wait for French engineers debugging or parts replacement and reduced to hangar queen. On the contrary, the J-10CE, with a unit price of only $60 million, realizes the performance reversal with 1/6 of the price. Its success stems from the systematic innovation of China's military industry. The whole aircraft integrates the domestic turbofan 10B engine, PL-15E missiles, and advanced data chain, which ensures that it can still fight stably under strong electromagnetic interference. Actual combat victory triggered a frenzied response from the capital market. AVIC Changfei's share soared 61.84% in 4 days. The Middle East, Southeast Asia. A number of countries quickly approached the procurement matters. Rafale myth is disrupting the international military trade pattern. France's influence in India has suffered a severe blow, and the Modi government's internal reflective voice is high. Is it short-sighted to reject the Russian side's $110 million per Su-57 package price in 2016? And the United States fell on its sword to restart the F-35 marketing, but insisted that India first dismantle the S-400 system, putting New Delhi in a dilemma. Pakistan, on the other hand, took advantage of the situation to complete the upgrade of strategic deterrence. Rafale wreckage photos printed as recruitment posters, psychological tactics, directly poking the soft underbelly of the Indian military and civilian morale. More critical is that the Pakistani military JF-17 Thunder fighter aircraft launched hypersonic missiles to destroy India's S-400 air defense system of the follow-up action, completely breaking the balance of military power in South Asia. This victory has given the China-Brazil cooperation in the development of the Dragon Kingfisher excellent advertising. Saudi Arabia, Turkey and other countries to accelerate the scale of 16J10CE procurement program. The French military's response is a model of crisis communications. Colonel Werner at a press conference on May the 27th to "The fog of war is not yet dissipated," wording to avoid direct confirmation, but meaningfully added, if true, it will be the Rafale service 20 years of the first combat losses. Behind this, do not deny, do not admit, strategy, is the French €7.8 billion of military sales of the final payment of anxiety. India is, equipment defect, as the reason for the request to switch to rupees to pay by the French strong resistance. More subtly, Dassault Aviation privately told CNN that Indian pilots are not well trained, in an attempt to shift the blame, while India has refused to allow a French technical team to inspect its inventory of fighter jets for fear of exposing more maintenance deficiencies. This farce of passing the buck to each other has exposed a deep crisis of trust in arms sales cooperation. See paradigm revolution in modern air warfare. This battle has overturned the logic of traditional air warfare. 90% of the results were achieved by the PL-15E from 100 kilometers away, marking the out-of-sight kills as the core model of modern air warfare. The "a fire, be guide" tactic used by the Pakistani army, in which the ZDK-03 AWACS remotely guided the missiles from the fighters, prevented the Indian pilots from detecting the opponent's traces until they were shot down. This descending strike confirms military theorist John Boyd's assertion that battlefield advantage belongs to the side that completes the OOD cycle more quickly. Rafale, 300 million, killed, France counts its money. India panics. The satirical passage circulating on the streets of New Delhi is the most pungent footnote of the air war of the century. When Colonel Werner with service 20 years of the first loss of battle, to maintain the last dignity. Global defense observers have seen the essence. Not the French fighter is not advanced enough, but the modern air war has moved from a single performance competition to the system confrontation era. India piled up with sky-high prices of universal brand arsenal in front of Pakistan's efficient and intensive Chinese system, but as a gorgeous and fragile armor. Now the smoke in Kashmir, although temporarily dispersed, but the wreckage of the crashed Rafale not burned out the Indian Navy logo is still warning the world. The arms race never depends on the number of price tags on the equipment to win or lose, but in a country can be used to independent innovation and systematic thinking. The weapons will really be transformed into a guardian of the territory of the Great Wall of Steel. When the Egyptian Air Force commander boarded the J-10CE, cockpit photos spread throughout the Middle East. When the Saudi royal family for the PL-15E missiles additional $2 billion in orders, the air war left history, far more than just a few wisps of smoke from the crash.